did you guys think? Yeah, it's recording.
I thought it was interesting how, like you said, the carbon, like, as people gained technology, the carbon increased, which hurt the environment.
Yeah, increased global warming. Which is
True.
very interesting. I thought it was interesting too how he talked about how there, back in the 1800s there was such a disparity between the underdeveloped countries and the developed countries, but then over time they, like, even though there were still technically undeveloped countries, they all progressed towards being developed.
Yeah, I liked how he showed like the future projections and how like even all like the poorest countries, like a lot of Africa was catching up to like really industrialized countries.
250
Yeah.
50 or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's not actually that far away. I mean it is, but.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting how like once one strikes me like the graph show of the turn of the century, what I said, how once some countries start making progress, they all start progressing. And I was saying earlier how it's correlated back with their wealth is a what's the term that we used?
A scarce resource.
A scarce resource, yeah. How there had to be like someone on bottom, middle, and top. Like not all the countries progress at the same rate. How like they feed off of each other, and the countries that remain on bottom, like the countries on top are there because they feed off of the ones on the bottom. Like
Yeah.
they take their resources or whatever for really cheap because they need the money so bad that they're willing to be like, okay, fine, we'll only get this much for it, and the wealthier countries can afford to hold out until they give in or whatever it is.
Kind of like we get our wealth from others' poverty kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
I also like how he said, like, Africa, even though it's not as good, that Africa's health is better, like, even though they're poorer, it's better than, like, where America was around to get that same health. We had to be a lot richer or whatever.
Oh yeah, that was interesting. I liked how they showed like where the different countries are at versus where we were at. Like how the Philippines have the medical advancements that we had in like the 1950s. I thought that was really interesting how you could directly show that. But it was true how we were always wealthier than where they're at with where their medical advancements.
Yeah, like they needed less to get where
Yeah.
we were than we did, I guess.
But we advanced so much quicker in every aspect because we had more money.
Yeah.
And the research and development, I think, is what makes us advance so much faster, but you can only do that when you have more wealth.
And like you said, with the means of development, like the economic growth of the means and how it progresses, but then the goals have to do more with like human rights and culture.
Yeah. We're at 3 minutes. Make sure to talk loud too, because this is...
Yeah, I liked the goals thing. I thought it was really interesting how like the least like important, I guess,
Like
the
the
means
mean of what
was
we
the
need.
smallest, and then like for culture it had like 1+, but for goals it had like 3.
It's
So,
like, yes, culture and human rights.
Yeah. And what wasn't wealth or whatever, didn't it on goals, didn't it have like just like a 1+ or 0 or something? And that's really what countries need to kind of progress quickly, at least. Like that's part of the reason the U.S. progressed so quickly, because they're so wealthy.
Very true.
Yeah. But it was also showing how like a lot of the countries are like catching up. Like what was it, Chile? You think of it as like an underdeveloped country, but it's actually like really far up there with us. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's interesting that like what's the difference between Chile and all those other like South American countries or whatever that are so much further below? You know, like, because Chile's not very big either, but they're right on the coastline, so they probably have more resources. I don't know, it's just interesting.
Yeah.
So
Like, what is it that makes those countries progress faster? They're still not as wealthy as us, but they're progressing faster in almost every aspect than its neighbors.
I wonder if a lot of it has to do with like how well they spend their money. Or
Yeah, like the
'cause
government.
yeah, because like in Africa, like the government just takes it all and
Super
spends it on
corrupt, yeah.
drugs and stuff, rather than like the good of the people and like healthcare and.
Yeah.
I thought how at the end he like showed the different houses between a person who earns like $1 a week
Oh,
or
yeah.
whatever, and then a person who would earn $10. It's like, wow, that's kind of a huge change between houses, even though it's
Yeah.
not that much, I guess,
Yeah, it doesn't,
compared to US anyways.
it doesn't seem like that much of a difference, but the quality of life changed really fast.
Yeah, and like the $1 and $2 houses, they were like a little bit better, but then the real jump came when it was like between the $2 and the $10 house, and then that was when you really crossed over the boundary of like the poverty line,
Mhm.
which is yeah, cool. Any last words?
Should we swallow a sword?
Yeah, and to end this with a cultural demonstration. Thank you and good night.